Hi, I'm Elliot Hudson, the game director on Hardspace Shipbreaker, and I'm here with some of the other folks from the development team to celebrate the first year anniversary of Shipbreaker's full release. And we're just so excited to be here and so excited that that game has had such a great growth and reception in the first year of its life. And we're here to have some fun and talk about the opening cinematic for the game and break down some of the thoughts behind it and some of the Easter eggs in it. It's just be pretty fun. With me, I've got a bunch of folks. Let's start with you, Chris.
Hey, I'm Chris Williams. I'm the studio art director, and I was part of the art direction team on Shipbreaker.
I'm.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Richard,
Jump in the queue. I'm Richard Harrison. I'm the tech director on Hardspace Shipbreaker, and super happy to be here.
I'm Jessica Klein. I was the executive producer on Hardspace Shipbreaker, and I'm super stoked to be here as well. I can't believe it's been a year.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into the opening cinematic for the game. Like many things in the game, this is quite a labor of love, and there's a lot of little details in it that we're gonna talk through as we're watching it. So, right off the bat, this is one of the first pieces of art that was made for the trailer. And Chris, this was Christina
Perez, yeah, she was one of the character artists at Blackbird. I think this actually comes from a static piece of artwork that we then implemented into the trailer.
I remember seeing this kind of making the rounds before we were even talking about the trailer, and then seeing it as the opening shot in the trailer was really cool.
Yeah, it was a mood shot from about 8 months prior. So.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole point was we wanted to just show in the distance a rocket coming off and then someone else left behind on Earth. Originally we thought it was like a crowd of people, but Christina did it with just a single child, almost as if they were watching their parent leave. And it's just a very emotionally resonant image. And the little figure, you can see in the little silhouette at the bottom right that the child is holding is the rabbit, the bunny doll that became a huge part of the game. This is actually where that comes from. And I just remember, I can't remember how did we share this out or something? The community somehow fixated on this rabbit in this image, and we at that point decided to make it an object in the game, and it just is that how it went? I
don't remember if was it this image. There was also the character concept image with the bunny hanging off of the hip.
That's
on the carabiner. That might have been the one that we shared out.
So that one's years and years before. That was like 2017, really early into Shipbreaker, I think.
Yeah.
When we were trying to get the suits right. And the idea was, from Christina actually, that every single character or every single worker in the Hardspace universe has their own kind of like flair. And one of the characters, people would have bandanas, different stickers on their hard hats, that kind of thing. And one of the workers had a bunny rabbit, and the idea was it was a trinket from his daughter.
Right.
So that's where that came from, and that never really went away from production. And then 2018 we had this mood piece that was kind of a tag along to this.
Right.
And then it kind of expanded from there. And I don't know when it went public, but everyone seemed to resonate with the bunny. So
that's a funny thing about early access is that there was so much that happened in parallel with development that it's almost hard to remember. Like, when did we talk about this? Who knew about this before we launched the game?
It's also one of those fun things that I think early access, what makes early access a really exciting thing for development is this was a piece of concept art that went out and just one element that people really resonated with that we hadn't really thought much about. Mm-hmm. But we were then able to take that and roll that in and make that a bigger part of the game. And the bunny ends up playing a pretty significant role in the game. So that was really fun. It was really cool to sort of see the community get excited about something and then be able to execute on that when we really originally hadn't planned on it.
There was also earlier conversations that the bunny ended up trumping because we had internally fixated on having a hula girl that was going to sit
right.
in the ship. Yeah. And then later on we're like, well, that doesn't make sense anymore. And then that's why, spoiler, that the bunny ends up
in the closing cinematic. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
The weirdest thing for me was that all the bunny stuff actually made it into the game while I was on paternity leave.
Yeah, he came back and there was bunnies everywhere.
There's bunnies absolutely everywhere in the game.
We had a bunny contest with the community too.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah. Actually, that's funny. I was just looking for my bunny plushie, and I think it's in my daughter's bedroom right now.
Nice. Yeah. But for the community, the devs, we got all bunny plushies. A hot commodity.
Here, I'll show mine. Oop. Just dropped my cat. Ah, there we go. Yay.
So good.
And then you can't
Beautiful.
really see. Yeah.
They're fantastic. Maybe one day they'll be merch. That'd be great.
Maybe.
All right, shall we press on?
Mm-hmm.
Please do.
All right.
We want to talk on the shuttle.
Yeah, let's talk about the shuttle. There's two things I want to talk about here. One is the shuttle. You go ahead, Chris.
Okay, so I might be wrong. We just said this just before we start recording, so correct me. But Richard was asking about what the origin was of this shuttle. If this was one of the assets in the game that we reused, and the answer is no. It's not. It doesn't feature in the game, but it was the proto version of the Gecko, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
It was just it was a design done by Aaron Kambitz and worked on by Brennan Massacott, and super awesome. Informed us about the kind of things that we can get away with Shipbreaker. The Gecko is much bigger than this. But
It is, but this is also bigger than a mackerel, I believe. So this is kind of like in between the two.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see looking at it here, it looks very much like a mackerel with the externals and the gecko with the external nacelles. So yeah, you're right, Chris. This one informed the Gecko, which we built that. That was the first ship we actually built for the game, was the Gecko. And then we realized that was probably the larger end of the ships that we would be making, and the mackerel came next because we wanted to figure out what's the smallest and sort of starter ship going to be. So we just sort of, it's like a mini version of a Gecko.
I was gonna say, when we first set out to do the Gecko, I don't think we actually intended it to be quite as big as it was, right? It ended up being kind of the biggest ship that we made, but it was sort of meant to be more the size that we're looking at here.
It was meant to be the smallest.
As you put features in, you have to build outwards, right? You never.
Yeah.
It's harder to condense anyway, so everything always ends up slightly bigger than you're intending with the initial design.
Totally.
And there was an even bigger original ship called the Salamander that ended up not making it into the game.
Oh, that's right.
That one was even bigger.
It made it into every screenshot that went.
We went bigger than that as well.
Yes, that's true. We went even bigger than that.
Well, let's just say the Gecko is the first successful ship that.
Yeah, I was gonna say wasn't actually the first ship we built. We built many before.
That's true. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the debris field that we're going through here. This is the Kessler effect, or the Kessler syndrome, which is this theory that in a short period of time in our future, as satellites continue to degrade and hit each other and rocket boosters are falling off and becoming shrapnel in space, there's going to be this sort of layer of just horrible small bits of shrapnel that are constantly floating around Earth that make leaving Earth in a spaceship actually very dangerous. And so in the Hardspace world, that sort of reinforces Earth being very separated from the rest of the solar system, where all of the rich people have sort of gone off to live and all of the good stuff is happening. Earth sort of trapped underneath this shrapnel cloud of debris and trash. And it's very expensive and dangerous to take ships in and out. And one of the first things when you arrive at the station and get all of your fees from Lynx as a new employee, one of the fees you pay is your Kessler passage toll. So yeah, this is showing you going through the Kessler.
Do we want to talk about how we learned about the Kessler effect?
Sure, yeah, it's pretty funny.
Just coincidentally, we had an artist on the team called Michael Kessler. I think we went through a thing where we'd type in people's names and we'd write syndrome at the end of it, and we got this. So we were like, hey, that's perfect for the game.
Yeah, totally. Makes a lot of thematic sense.
It does, yeah. And then the Kessler, and then that's actually how Lynx starts too. Lynx starts as a mom and pop operation salvaging the Kessler debris, and then eventually grows into this mega corporation. So yeah. All right, we're gonna keep going.
Approach vector. Each day he steps into the yard to earn his wages working hard.
So the poem, this is a riff on what's called the coal miners poem. And this is actually
Prayer, right?
Promised Prayer, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is actually This was written by Trey Smith, the studio creative director, who was working on this project in the early days, and he adapted it to be the Cutter's Prayer, or the Cutter's Poem, and it's wonderful. And this was a prayer that kids would essentially say as their parents went off to work in the coal mine, not knowing if they would come back due to some accident. So having it play here after we just saw that child see the rocket lift into space is very, very powerful, very effective.
To earn his wages working hard. I pray to the stars.
Two things here.
Yeah, we got lots on screen now.
Okay.
That Amnesia Lounge, man, that's old stuff, right? That was first or second. Yeah,
2016, late 2016, early 2017, I think, right?
we first started to do the idea of like the meta game, the what are you doing outside of the moment to moment gameplay, and there was like this bar that you'd go decompress in, and we called it the Amnesia Lounge. And it was it looked a lot different in the original version.
Yeah, it was arted up by an artist called Noah Stacy, and he threw in all these animated characters and stuff and did all this cool projection painting. So it was something that we always loved. So there you go,
Yeah.
Still in the game.
Yeah, Amnesia Lounge, where you go to forget.
Yeah.
And then
And
the
then
Torrent
top right,
Crater,
Torrent Crater.
which was
Yeah,
a reference to Homeworld, and also Eric Torren is one of our C-suite at the studio, and this made its way into the game without us knowing. So we had to submit our cinematic, and it was put in last minute, and by the time we saw it, it was too late to do anything about it. But just to clarify, there is no connection to Homeworld in this game.
yeah. We always have that battle of is this game in the Homeworld universe or not? And we're pretty adamant that it's not. And yet there's this Torrent Crater connection Torrent Crater shows up in Homeworld in a couple of places. Torrent Crater in Homeworld is also a reference to Eric Torren,
Yeah.
Chief Operating Officer.
Artist.
Yeah, artists, they snuck it in. It's a cute nod, but yes, don't get your hopes up. It is not a reference, not intended to be a reference to Homeworld.
I pray to the stars and heaven above to return my daddy to those he loves. If there comes a time when he and death meet,
This is this big ship that's sort of crossing in front of us is we call it the Polaris, and you see a couple of them flying around, and one actually comes and docks with your station every once in a while. We also tried to build that into a salvageable ship, but that thing is, I don't know, Chris, do you remember how long it was? 2 kilometers?
It was like
Yeah.
1.8
1.8.
Yeah.
kilometers or something like that.
And
And that
6
one
months
grew.
6 months of production work.
We tried really hard, but
We got it in. We did actually get it in to a build, like to the point where we could traverse it and cut parts of it out. But it's not just the time that took to make it. It's also the gameplay of cutting up large ships, right? It was a
Totally.
decision to make that it's actually more fun where we're at, right?
Significant drop off in kind of like
Bang for buck, right?
yeah, like bang for buck in how much it costs to do something, to build a ship that big, and how much enjoyment you actually get out of cutting up a ship that big. It kind of just gets monotonous after a certain point.
plus to make it actually fully cuttable, which we never were able to quite get to, you would need
would
like a
be-
quantum computer.
Yes, yeah, totally. Something else I just wanted to mention before we continue on here. Right before you paused, it kind of was the first introduction of that synthwave element on top of the guitar vibes. Ben McCullough unfortunately wasn't able to join us today, but he was the audio director on this project, and right out of the gates, he was kind of theorizing this really awesome overlap between the two genres. And I think this trailer, or this track at least, might have been the first
It was.
example of that.
Yep.
And it kind of blew the pants off of everybody. It was just amazing.
So audio director, but also composed 100% of the synth tracks.
That's right, yeah. And then also made them all dynamic, so when you're actually playing in gameplay, they kind of layer in depending on the intensity of what you're doing in the game.
Pretty incredible. All right, let's keep going.
selects the next cutter that takes his seat.
That's Rob's favorite shot.
So this is a Salamander. I believe.
Yeah, that's a ship that doesn't exist in the game.
Yeah, this is like just on the cusp. This is just beyond the cusp of what's actually possible performance-wise in the game, and that's why it's not in the game. That's why geckos are really the biggest ones that you can get. But we had a Salamander model, and we used it for the cinematic, and it looks pretty good here.
Similarly, this is an old version of the bay.
That's right, actually.
yeah.
The old furnaces.
Yeah.
Missing
Yeah.
the numbers, missing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, so specifically the salvaging area, if you look at that, we originally had just a giant letterbox that was like, I don't know how big that is. It's like 100 meters, right? I think at least. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 furnaces, no processor. Yeah, this was an older bay. I remember that. It's such a great job by the cinematics team, incorporating that like tethering mechanic where you can sort of tether a bunch of stuff together. The fact that they sort of took that gameplay element and put it into the trailer, I thought was pretty awesome. I remember too that this you see the cutter in action, you see the grapple in action. And I think we were still like really early in development on those tools. Like they were still fairly rough in the game, but this sort of showed like what the finished state could be, and it was so cool to see them in this state. And then we worked on them in the game to get them to feel as good as they do in this trailer.
It ended up feeling pretty true to form by the end of it. It like this matched gameplay quite well.
You can pull apart the details on this, but I think spiritually, they nailed exactly what it should feel like, you know, cinematically. So it was a beautiful job by Dylan and crew.
Yeah, exactly. The Darth Vader breath on the end. I think, Chris, that's your breath, right?
Is it?
No, I don't know. I have no idea whose breath it is.
You've been recording me sleeping.
It's probably Dylan's.
I still get like goosebumps sometimes watching that. It's really good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It was fun to see after a while.
This was really fun to tear this apart and look at this again after quite a while. I haven't actually watched it in probably the year that the game's been out. Maybe next year we'll look at the closing cinematic. That would be pretty fun.
That'd be amazing. We'll all be crying while we're reviewing that one.
Yeah, I think we'll need more than 15 minutes for that.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks everyone for hanging out and looking at this with us, and thank you for playing Hardspace Shipbreaker. And if you haven't yet, check it out on Game Pass, consoles, and Steam. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.